Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm finally starting a new sketchbook, and starting the first page always gets me a little bit nervous, like I have to paint something nice. So today I'll be painting a blue butterfly perched on a green leaf. I start by sketching out the leaves and the butterfly in the middle and a little bit of grass in the background. I'm going to start painting the blades of grass in the background first. I paint them in a dark shade of green and I add a little bit of light green highlights. I want the foliage to look a little bit wild and untamed, so I'm drawing blades of grass in different directions and just to fill up the space a little bit more. And on this side I continue to add more grass and kind of just crisscross them around to give it that unruly look, and then I continue to add more light green so that the grass looks a bit more visible because I'm going to be painting a black background. Now I'm just going to paint very kind of like thin branches in brown, and I also add a little bit of highlights into it. I kind of paint it in a darker shade of brown and then I add a bit of white and then I shade the top part of the branch. Because all these are kind of like very thin details, I use a size 000 brush for this. Next, I want to fill up these blank spaces in between with a little bit more leaves, kind of like creepy little vines in between the grass, and I'm going to paint them in a more olive shade of green. And in the middle of the leaves, I dip the paintbrush in white and I add the lines to give the leaves a little bit more details. Once I've painted all the smaller details in the background, I'm going to fill up these blank spaces in black. It's a little bit tedious compared to if I just paint it black and then I paint all these things over it, but I find that the color will look a little bit muddy if I do that. So this is just to fast forward the process. I paint everything in black and now I'm going to mix olive green with a bit of brown and I'm going to use the size 000 brush and just kind of like fill up all the spaces with more vines and tiny branches to give it a bit more depth. So for these other white spaces here that are left out, these are the main leaves which I'm going to be painting. So I'm using a lighter shade of green, green meat and dark green because I don't want these leaves to look too plain. So I'm going to paint it light and then dark so you can see a little bit of color variation on the leaves. And then in the middle of the leaves I'm going to give it a bit of detail and I dip the paintbrush in white and I draw these lines on them. So I want the leaves to look a little bit different from each other in terms of color. So for this one I add a little bit more yellow to the green, so you have this kind of like yellowish light green, but I repeat the pattern as well, light dark on the leaf, and then I draw the lines in the middle. So I repeat this process for all the other leaves, and then we'll be painting the middle part, which is the butterfly. After painting the body of the butterfly in black, I paint its wings in one color first, which is ultramarine blue. Once the first layer is done, then I mix turquoise blue with a little bit of sky blue and then I paint the second layer. All this while the paint is still wet so that it kind of like blends nicely, and then I add a little bit of white and I just kind of drag the paint out so you can see little white lines and that will look like part of the wing design. And then I mix black and dark blue and I outline the edges of the wing, and then I use the brush and I draw these very thin tiny designs on the wing. And once that is done, I dip the paintbrush in white and I make these very tiny white little dots around the edges of the wings of the butterfly on the black lines. And then this was kind of like a impulsive last minute final touches. I used teal green and I add this very out of place semi-flower, not flower thing on the left, but anyway, it is finished. I actually pretty like how this turned out, and I hope you'll find this tutorial useful, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching and see you again soon. Goodbye.